Opportunity employer.
102.7 Mom FM 748 12 before the top of the hour. In the studio, Dr. Jacob Seng, NorthStar Chiropractic, in the studio. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in this morning. We are going to be talking over the next couple of minutes about nutrition and how it is important to all of our lives. And we hear it from time to time, but how important is it?
Well, it's vital, right? Because like literally the saying is you are what you eat, and it's 100% true. You know, and you know you can't put in pizza and expect to perform at a high level the next day, right? Mm-hmm. Just like anything. But the thing that I really wanted to touch on today is nutrition for longevity and kind of a different approach, right? Because there isn't a lot of discussion about how to maintain muscle mass as we age, right? So there's this thing going around right now that talks about muscle being the organ of longevity, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you can maintain muscle mass into your later years, you have better blood levels, meaning your blood sugar is more regulated, your heart is healthier, everything is functioning just at a much higher level, and it all can be correlated back to maintaining muscle mass, because we have this natural thing within all of us that as we age, muscle just decreases. It's called sarcopenia, right? Okay. And then you couple in not exercising or not having healthy habits like exercise daily and things like that, leading into your 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then we become more sedentary, and then our joints become less healthy because of lack of movement and everything else. But it all can be linked back to muscle mass. And so how do we maintain muscle mass as we age? So yes, obviously me as a gym owner would be like, you need to work out, you need to do things like that. Or just have your own strategy in place to use your body, to express yourself physically in that way. But the other thing is protein. Okay. Right? So the new recommendation, right, is to maintain muscle mass, you need 0.8 of a gram per pound of body weight, right? And so, or if you're trying to build muscle, and I say this a lot to my younger athletes, you need 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body, right? So for my linemen who are trying to get bigger, they need to set their goal based on what they want to be, which can be a little dicey, right? Even for myself, I eat an exorbitant amount of protein because I'm sitting at about 225 pounds. That's 225 grams of protein on a day just to maintain my muscle mass.
But you find that some people will say too much protein can be bad for you, though, right?
You can. And it really comes down to the source that which you're taking in, right? And that's the other thing, too, is when I do this, I'm looking for clean sources of protein. So I personally make the case for red meat. Red meat has gotten a bad rap through different literature and things like that, and different studies that have been done. But truth be told, in studies, they found that, or through the large amount of the research, they found that the people who eat a significant amount of red meat as their protein source have actually better overall health markers and better blood markers, and they actually live a longer, more fulfilling life. So,
but for those, to be the devil's advocate for a moment, can somebody that is a vegetarian or a vegan still get protein to replace that kind of?
They can. It's just the beautiful thing that, yes, you're absolutely right. There are vegetarian sources of protein, like pea proteins and beans and legumes and all those things. However, the micronutrient density of red meat can't be discounted. So the amount of protein that's packed into, let's say, a portion of red meat versus pea protein, you would have to eat 5 times as much pea protein to get the same amount of protein that you would get from eating one fist-sized steak. Okay. Right? And then the other thing on top of that is the micronutrient density, because people don't talk about that either, right? So contained within our red meat is micronutrients that essentially come from the earth. So, the cow eats the grass then turns into fuel for the cow and then lays into their muscle, and then, we eat the cow, we eat the muscle. And so it's as it moves up the food chain, the density of the nutrients comes together. So notice that I said too, if you can eat if you could eat a grass source of red meat, great. But even sometimes too, just eating red meat in general will have more micronutrient density than, let's say, just a bowl of lettuce because of those things. And we never discuss those topics, right? Because contained within that red meat is magnesium and creatine and all the things that are pulled from the soil into the grass and then into the cow.
So let's talk about recommended diet in regards to protein and nutrition.
Yes.
Should you be only using protein when you're working out? Should it be part of your daily habit? What's your thoughts on that?
So my thought is while protein shakes are good, they're not my favorite way to get protein into the body. Like, essentially natural sources of anything is going to be more readily absorbed. The thing that I kind of relay to a lot of my clients and my patients and some of the people in the gym is if you can't tell what's in it by looking at it, you might not want to put it in your system, right? So like while protein powders do serve a place for some people in their lives, I can't tell you what's in that powder. And I know nothing exists in that form in nature, right? However, I can look at a steak, I can look at an apple, I can look at a head of lettuce, I can look at a potato, and I can tell you exactly what's in that, right? There's no additives, there's no shelf life to those things. They expire, and so like a lot of times too, like staying around the perimeter of the grocery store just creates a healthy habit for people. Once you start going up and down the aisles and we start getting into those preservatives and things like that, then everything starts to go downhill.
But I don't think many people knew. I didn't realize that. Your fresh fruits and vegetables and everything like that on the outer perimeter.
Yeah.
And in regards to nutrition, is there maybe 5 items that you would recommend to be a part of that daily or weekly diet?
Yeah. So I think I made the case for protein and healthy sources, natural sources of protein and that kind of thing. So like I feel like that should be the foundational point of your plate. So like if you're trying to get in, let's say even 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, like that takes strategy, right? So like you put that in your plate first, and then you fill the rest in with fresh fruits and vegetables, right? You do that, you'll feel more satiated, meaning like full, right? And you'll be less likely to snack in between meals, which again is a healthy strategy. And then the other thing too is that it will carry you further, down the road. Like your blood sugar will maintain a nice even level, right? A lot of times when we start putting in more carbohydrates or things like that into our system, our blood sugar will spike. Like for instance, our children, right? We give them, a bowl of cereal. Like, you remember growing up, right, Chris? Like, it was the picture of the cereal and the orange juice and a grapefruit, and that was the advertisement that we saw. Well, the truth is all 3 of those things are nothing but sugar. So then we give it to our kids, and our blood sugar just spikes. That's what I'm getting at, is blood sugar spikes, right?
Yeah.
And so if we rooted their mealtime, like their breakfast, in eggs, right, as a good healthy source of protein to start with, and then filled in with some carbohydrates, then they would be less likely to have that blood sugar spike, which then less blood sugar spikes lead to better performance in school and less of those symptoms that are associated with ADHD and things like that. But it starts with nutrition, right?
Okay.
So like, I guess my recommendations, like you said, what are the 5 things? It would be to like focus on protein, stay away from the refined carbohydrates, and then fill the rest of your plate in with healthy fruits and vegetables that exactly where they come from and what's in them, and that your body can readily absorb those things.
And as a chiropractor, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Jacob Seng in the studio with us from NorthStar Chiropractic. As a chiropractor, how does that putting those healthy items in your body help with your joints? I know we talked about muscle, but in regards to joints.
Yes, great question. So you notice that like when I'm talking about these things, I'm talking mainly about like natural things, right? So healthy, meat and fruits and vegetables. So none of those things typically have an inflammatory response within the body. So if we can eat anti-inflammatory foods, our body is less prone to inflammation. With less inflammation, right? And where does inflammation go? It goes into our joints. So a lot of times, like I'll help people clean up their diets, and then they'll see their knee pain will go away, right? Or that chronic shoulder ache that was there will go away, right? Or the opposite will happen. They'll eat clean for a week, and then they'll go out on the weekends and they'll have like, I went and saw my buddies and I had a few beers, and I woke up on Sunday morning and man, that pain was back and it just wasn't quite right. Of course, because beer is nothing more than a carbohydrate that with an inflammatory process that can lead to like the joint inflammation and everything else.
Absolutely. I was waving at Andrew driving by this morning as I was listening to you on this. You know, we've got a couple of comments that came in. Mitch Foster, city manager of Ludington, he just drove by a few minutes ago, and he says, eat real food, mostly plants, not too much, though. Michael Pollan, right?
Right.
And Russell says, hunt and raise your own meat along with growing your own vegetables.
Yes, sound strategies.
And it is. It's to avoid, and not everybody can be hunting and fishing and so on and so forth, but in the bigger picture of it, the more we add to our food for the taste or the preservation of it, it's always an indicator that it's not good for us, right?
Yes. And I think they bring up two great points is like people forget how amazing living in Mason County is, right? We all know a farmer that raises beef, right? Or an animal, or the kid, you can go to the 4-H auction and you can literally look your meal in the eye, right? Or we all know people that hunt. And so like, if you don't hunt yourself. And like, I think we forget that. Like, this stuff is so readily accessible to us. It does take a little bit more legwork, but living here versus living inner city Detroit has such an advantage to your nutrition, right? Because everybody does these things, or at least we know people that do these things. So it's really cool. That's why, I mean, you know, it comes back to, again, I feel like we talk about this regularly, how wonderful this place is to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. West Michigan is a good place. We wrapping up with Dr. Jacob Seng this morning. What's your last recommendation in regards to the whole big picture of this?
Yeah, the whole big picture is that it's not an all or nothing thing, right? It's people think that like, okay, my diet starts tomorrow, but you know what? It doesn't really work that way. It's about being 1% better every day, right? If I can be 1% better every day in my nutrition, in my thought process, in my exercise, by the end of the year, we're 365% better, right? So it's 1% better. And like, just because you mess up and let's say you eat the wrong thing at lunch doesn't mean the whole day is shot. You can return back to your healthy habit at dinner time. You don't have to let the wheels fall off, because if you know, let's say somebody brings in donuts at the bank and you have a donut, and then you say, oh, I already had a donut, I might as well eat this pizza, and that kind of stuff. And then next thing you know, it's a month down the road and you're completely off the rails and you don't feel good, you're not moving like you should, and it just has a cascade effect. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's just a little by little creating those changes in your life, you know? And then once you get to that point too, realize that like moderation is key, and I follow the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time, I'm super clean, but there's those 20%, right? Where like, yep, I'm not without fault. Like, I'm gonna have pizza. I'll probably have a beer too, you know? And so we have to keep that in mind, right? It's a balance, but like as long as you can stay 80%, you know, to the good, and your life is going to be way better.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Good advice this morning. Dr. Jacob Seng from NorthStar Chiropractic. If, by the way, particularly about the chiropractic side of things, I love this. Take us through real quickly. You can get like an annual membership, right? Or
yes.
And then come in at any time. Explain that for us.
Yes, we offer care plans for people who like see the value of the chiropractic care on a regular, semi-regular basis. So once you become an established patient in the office, like after your initial intake where we take any necessary x-rays, you and I sit down and talk about them and go over what we found and things like that, then a lot of it comes back to like what your daily habits are, and then we can make like a solid care recommendation for you or your family that will allow you to like just maintain the health of your spine over time. Because again, it's not about the quick fixes. Just like fitness doesn't show up in a day, you know, health or chiropractic health doesn't show up in a day either. It takes a little work over time to offset all of those things that we had leading up to that point and our daily habits after that to make sure that everything stays in alignment.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
So they can call the office at 231-843-8200, and I have a couple great staff members that will be able to get you in and get everything checked out.
All right, sounds good. Dr. Jacob Seng, NorthStar Chiropractic, as always, thank you for coming in this morning. It is 8:02 on your station playing your hit music. It is Mom FM. We're breaking for news and weather. Coming back with more hit music, Pharrell Williams to kick off the hour next. On 102.7, it is Mom FM.
Thanks for making us number one.